Hello, my name is Holly Hartman, and welcome to day 6 of the 7-day No Complaining Challenge. I am super duper proud of you for being here, for continuing to show up for yourself, and to becoming aware of the level of complaining that you were doing before this event. And, many of us are just now becoming aware, but also we have this internal conflict. I am an audio processor. Are you an audio processor? For some? So I've also had to go and reflect and go, am I venting or am I complaining? Because venting can be really healthy for us to get to our emotions, to come to a solution, to be able to release it and to get it out. Now, we obviously have to give consent energetically to the people that we're venting to make sure that they can hold space for us, because not everybody can. Or also really thinking to yourself, okay, if I'm venting to this person, do they have a solution, or what's the purpose of me venting to them? But I'm going to describe a little bit to help you uncover and really think for yourself, because I had to catch myself this week. I'm like, am I venting or am I complaining? And so there's 3 different categories that I'd like for you to consider when you're thinking about, am I venting or complaining? Okay. So there is a fine line between the two. So I don't want you to gaslight yourself when you're needing to actually vent, which can be healthy, versus complaining, which can actually really affect your relationships negatively and can be really sabotaging to a lot of them. So this can be really helpful to know that fine line in what you're doing. And for the person that you're venting or complaining to, they may not see the difference until you get to the end. So one of the things it talked about, so we might share the same emotions of anger and frustration and all of that if we're venting, as the same as we are when we're complaining. So the emotions might look the same. So that's kind of like, oh, well, that's hard to decipher if that's the same or can be similar. But if you're a chronic complainer, it means that it really will ruin relationships and prevent deep connections. But venting is much healthier for relationships because it allows you to return to your wonderful self. So if after you vented and you got it out and you found a solution, that it changes your demeanor in the sense you don't have to carry that anymore, you're able to release it and move on to the next thing, then that's venting, and that's actually can be very helpful. So that's why a lot of people find therapy helpful, because they're there venting until they can come to a solution, they can release it and they feel better. Or maybe to a trusted loved one that you're able to do that with, or a coworker. It gives you a sense of peace and allows you to find comfort and to be able to continue being awesome. Yay! So venting, path towards healing, and complaining is a path towards conflict. I'll say that again. Venting is a path towards healing. Complaining is a path towards conflict. And I know many complainers who are also conflict avoiders. So you're actually creating your own storm if you don't start to try to be mindful on how that is. So yesterday, I gave you 5 questions you can ask yourself if you feel yourself complaining. And what that'll do is actually help you, if you're venting, to go, okay, I'm going to go from complaining to venting. So that might be the shift that we have to make. And so those 5 questions yesterday will help us go from help us in the venting, getting out of complaining into venting. So one of the first things that we need to do, and so venting is unlike complaining in the sense that it's a way to articulate a frustration without knee-jerk emotions that fuel the complaint. So rather than complaining in the heat of the moment, create space to vent after the negative emotions have passed. Now, like I just said, you might have some similar elevated emotions. You might still be angry, but you're not in that about ready to be a cheetah, jump out at somebody angry. You might be angry, but you're processing that anger, but you're not ready to act on that anger, in a way that you would regret later. So that's the difference too, is when you're venting, you may be in a space where you can step back and kind of look at it. You're trying to process it. But when somebody's complaining, it might be literally the person just cut me off and I'm in the height of the emotion. I'm going to, it's whoa. If you carry that on and then you go home and you complain about it, that might, in that moment, you might have had to just vent it out. Okay, fine. And then you've let it go. And then you just move on your way. And that's just what you had to do to process it out and get that, that flow out of you. But if you carry that home and then you told your spouse or significant other, you told your children, you told your coworker or your best friend on your phone, then you're complaining, right? It's not resolving anything. So there's 3 attributes or three sections that I'd like you to consider when you're trying to figure out if it's venting or complaining. So, one is open mindedness. Ask yourself, how open minded am I when I'm venting or complaining? So, oftentimes, people who are venting are more open minded. And the reason why I say that is because they are looking for a solution. They are venting to get clear in their mind. So it says when you're sharing emotions, one way to determine if you're complaining or venting is if you're open minded. So complainers only see it from their point of view. Have you talked to people like this that are complainers, and then maybe you're trying to have a conversation with them and you offer a solution and like, no, 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 it's not that, it's this, and this is the way it is. And you're like, whoa, okay. But like, how open minded are you in that situation? Or they might complain about the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. They're not really being open-minded. They believe that they're right, and whoever else is, they believe they're 100% right, and whoever else is involved is 100% wrong. That's typically what a chronic complainer might do. But when you're truly venting, you're not looking for you're not looking for answers. You're simply sharing your feelings, and that's it. You're not trying to convince the listener that you are right and everyone is wrong. In fact, it's not uncommon to admit your mistake and shortcomings while venting. So if you're really trying to process this, you're like open-minded, like, man, where did I go wrong? Maybe let's see what part I'm playing in this. And you're really trying to just process what happened. Like maybe you have a conflict with a friend or somebody online. I'm currently have something like that going on right now. And I'm like, okay, am I practicing what I'm preaching? And I'm like, I've talked about this a couple of times now. It's because I'm venting because I'm trying to process the best way to go about it that is both honest and truthful for me, where I get to speak my truth, but also in a place of where am I open-minded to come have this conversation that is potentially have conflict? Am I open to receiving feedback from them about maybe a misperception I have? So I'm in the process of venting or like creating that dialogue in my mind and also sharing it with my significant other as I'm processing and another trusted friend. I'm not telling the world. I'm not on Facebook sharing it. I am going to some trusted people that, if nothing else, I can say it out loud so I can come to the best solution for everybody. So there's a difference in that. Now, if I'm still talking about this same thing every single day for the next couple months, oh, that's for sure complaining. That's not venting. And so we don't want to gaslight ourselves into figuring that out. So that's the next one that I'm talking about is frequency. How often are you doing this? Maybe you're in a challenging marriage and you are always venting, or you may think you're always venting about your significant other to your friend. If it keeps going on and you're not finding solutions or not open to solutions, then it is that you're probably complaining. And so complainers love to complain. There's always something for them to complain about. They complain about this and that, and it's one issue after another. All right. So if they're constantly complaining, they're complaining. They're complainers. But venting is less frequent. Venting usually follows an internal struggle over an issue. You're searching for meaning and resolution. When you're venting, it's because you either need to verbally share your thoughts so you can discover a solution, or you need to share your feelings to lighten your burden. So issues that require this much mental energy do not often happen in our lives. So if you find yourself venting every day, then maybe you're not venting at all. Maybe you're just complaining. And then the last of the three is participation. So the easiest way to determine if you're complaining or venting, complaining wants yes men and women. So who are you complaining to? Are you going to the sources that will actually help provide solutions? So let's say you have a conflict at work. Are you going to your boss and sharing that there? Or are you talking to all of your coworkers and bringing them down? Because they're saying, yeah, you're right. You got it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Who are you going to when you're trying to process whether it's venting or complaining? That's a good internal thing to check in. Complainers want you to participate in their complaining. They want you to support their views. They want you to agree with their assessments. When you're venting, you actually don't want much participation. You want a listener whom you can fully share your thoughts and feeling without any interruption. The job of the listener is to validate your emotions, and that's it. And I see this happening with some of my friends. I think some of my trusted friends, they're so used to being around complainers that I value them as somebody that I might be able to vent to like really just process it out loud so I can find a solution. And then someone to jump in and help and offer. I'm like, ooh, that didn't feel good to me as somebody that's just trying to vent and process it. I wasn't looking for advice. I didn't ask for that. I'm really, truly just processing it out so I can get to that solution. And oftentimes just speaking it out, I can come to the conclusion on my own. Now, not open-minded to hearing their feedback, but oftentimes when it doesn't go well is when they're not validating the emotion. Like, oh, I can totally see why you're angry in that moment. If I was in your shoes, I'd probably be angry too. They're not saying that other person's completely wrong. They're not saying you're completely right. They're just validating that emotion that you're experiencing. And if you're sharing it, right? So it depends on the participation. So if I'm saying, yes, you're right, go get them, go kill them, go, am I helping the complainer? Am I participating in it? Or am I moving them towards venting? So the past few days, we've kind of been talking about that. We talked about chronic complainers and how you can ask questions to get them into basically venting or getting to that solution. And then yesterday we talked about our own questions that we could ask ourselves if we're like, oh gosh, if I'm complaining, what are some of the things I can do? Figure out my feelings and then go through that series of 5 questions. And then today we're just talking about like, how do I stop myself and go, am I venting or complaining? And then also maybe start to reflect if you have people in your life that are complaining or venters. Maybe you thought they were complaining. Maybe they are just venting. And maybe you can ask questions differently to support them. And they might actually be able to move through those things much quicker if you can support them in that way. But if they're chronic complainers, then go to the day 3, I think it was, where we talked about chronic complainers. So none of us are perfect. Not a single one of us. So it's not wise to sit there and point the finger at the complainers. It's good to be aware. It's good to hold your own boundaries, but it's also good to have your own self-accountability and go, okay, this is where I'm at. And we can call it out, but we don't have to be self-deprecating. We don't have to shame ourselves. We get to learn. We get to shift. We get to make changes. So today I want to celebrate you. If you've been doing this challenge, please reward yourself. Please, because I know what it takes to do these challenges. I know that oftentimes we're super excited about starting out and we're gung-ho, and day 3 we drop off. And that happens. It's normal. A lot of people do that. It's like no big deal. That's why I try to teach the basics things. So if nothing else, if people aren't watching the videos, but they're just slowly realizing that they're going to change their complaining down a little bit, man, that ripple effect is helping the world. It's helping our families. It's helping our coworkers. It's helping people you don't know who you're touching by making these shifts. So celebrate that you're making a change in the world by you being able to shift from being a complainer to at least a venter, to then maybe have other opportunities to process it differently in the future, or just not let it consume you. So thank you for being here today. Super proud of you. Please, down below, let me know how this is affecting you, what your experience has been, good, bad, indifferent, any challenges you're experiencing. Please let me know, because tomorrow I'm going to wrap this up in a pretty little bow, and I'm going to be here for you. I want to see you succeed. I want to see you grow. I want to be a resource and a value to you to help you raise and elevate yourself so then you can raise and elevate others in your area. All right. Many blessings to you. Thank you.